now listening to another episode of Streets to Success podcast with Frank, Jalil, and we have special guest John Solomon in the building, Endangered Kind. John, how you feeling today?
Feeling great, man. Glad to be here. Been wanting to get on here for some time now, so glad to have the opportunity to be here now.
Thank you. We were definitely was supposed to have you on sooner, but
facts. He was supposed to be up there. Real right.
Well, it's crazy because we had like a list of guests, and he was like the first on there too.
No,
and
real rap.
We
You
chipped
look at
away.
our
We chipped away a lot of them too.
Yeah, real rap. So, all right. So we usually start from the beginning of where you came from, where you were born, all the way up to what you got going on now.
Okay.
And we could break it down in increments too, like, you know, from early childhood as far back as you can remember to like middle school. How did that look for you in your household, school, stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in North Philly, 24th and Somerset to be exact. But earlier, before I actually moved around that particular area, I lived like maybe, I want to say 4 or 5 blocks up from 24th and Somerset. My grandma lived on Hamburger Street, which is between 22nd and Lehigh and 23rd and Lehigh. Early on, maybe under 8 years old or so. My mom had me when she was young, so we kind of lived at my grandma's house growing up. And that particular block was high crime traffic block. Mm-hmm. So I kind of grew up late 90s. Grew up seeing a lot of things that a child shouldn't be exposed to. Like my mom was one of the women around the neighborhood that was liked by a lot of different men, Korean and black, long hair, pretty. And then my dad was somebody who was very known for being involved in the streets. So kind of growing up, I was one of the kids in the neighborhood that had a whole lot of stuff growing up as far as like the material things and getting dressed and having the latest clothes. Had a little bit more than a lot of my friends. But growing up on this block, like I said, it was a lot of drug dealing on the block. So I would see a lot of the old heads, we call them old heads, selling drugs and carrying guns and things like that. So I was exposed to that early on. And then eventually, as I got a little older, a few years later, I wound up moving to 24th and Somerset. But my upbringing just was like a lot of other kids throughout the city, young black, just in a neighborhood where gun violence is a norm, selling drugs is a norm. Fatherless is a norm. Like I always knew my pop, but my pop wasn't involved in my life. Mm-hmm. I would see him passing by in the neighborhood, but he wasn't in my life, and I never really had no real men involved in my life growing up. So a lot of things that I did was me learning from trial and error. Eventually, as I got a little older, I want to say around between the ages of 10 and 12, I want to say things started to shift a little bit for me. I had, friends, be curious, be seeing a lot of stuff growing up, and you get to an age, some people wait until they're a teenager, but we started a little younger, started carrying guns, started with BB guns, and then eventually led to real guns and going around robbing people or just carrying guns in general, not really having no real adversaries or beef with anybody, but it just was a thing. It was normalized in the neighborhood. So,
how was school coming up during that time?
School was great. I went to St. Martin de Porres with you. I love school, but just like anybody else, you step outside of school, we all in the same environment. So, although like my mom sent me to a school that was a little bit better than the public schools, when I left school, my homies and my friends that went to public school, we was under the same circumstances in the same environment. Mm-hmm. So it went from me being around them having even more unfortunate living conditions. Because, again, I had a little bit more than my friends, but my friends, their households was a lot more disadvantaged. There's levels to being disadvantaged in the neighborhoods. Yeah. It was a lot more disadvantaged than I was. Like, I had a supportive family, people that showed me love, and they didn't. So me befriending I don't want to say the wrong people, but young people that was misguided, we kind of eventually found ourselves not knowing how to deal with conflict with another group of young kids in the neighborhood that didn't know how to deal with conflict. Wars started.
Now, what was it over? What was this like? Over blocks or drugs or girls? Like, what was it even over? Do you remember?
So it wasn't over girls or it wasn't over drugs. Really, a lot of it was just miscommunication. There was a particular time where we was all at the same party one day, and the let out parties, depending on who you are, you might just got aggression. Young people just had aggression at that time. And of course, if you feel like the aggression is being towards you, you kind of get offensive without even communicating, and one particular group thought that the aggression or our body language was aimed towards them, and it just
escalated
big time. And we didn't know at the time that it would get that aggressive, but it did. So, of course, I got...
Well, I want to touch on something that you said. You said, growing up, I grew up like a lot of people in it. But people that are tuning in, like, we're a small percentage in the inner city that don't get the experience, the upbringing that others experience. So to you and the people around you, it's the normal. But to somebody tuning in, they might not know what our normal is. So what's the little, like, as you grew up and your mindset changes in cognitive distortion, like our perception of living was a certain way when we grow up. Now, as we get older, we experience more, we learn more. What are some things like growing up that you were around that just wasn't normal, like that you now know that like, damn, that wasn't really normal to do, carrying a gun and what other things?
It's quite a few things growing up. Like I said, I was exposed to a lot of, I want to say big time drug dealers, but I had people within my family and people within the neighborhood, people on my block that was very known for drug dealing. They was making a lot of money, especially during that time.
So that was normal.
Yeah, so that was super normal, seeing drug dealing, guns being visible, people being shot, people being killed. The first time I really seen somebody like just get shot and bleeding out and dead was probably about 10, 11 years old. So, I mean, just seeing stuff like that was
the
norm
normal to you.
Yeah, that was normal.
So if you pick 10 of your friends, 9 of them probably experienced the same. 10 of your friends at the time, they probably experienced
10
the
of
same.
them probably
10
experienced
all of
it.
them.
Yeah.
10 of them.
So it's like a war zone, kind of.
Yeah, it was a war zone. But, I mean, like, when you born or birthed into a war zone, you don't know anything else outside of that being a norm.
Survive.
Yeah.
Right. So you think a lot of you being in the streets was because of the absence of your father? Like coming from a single family home? A single parent home? So
I think it was part of the reason. I wouldn't place everything on the absence of my father, but I definitely think it would have made a difference being in my life growing up. Reason being, I mean, he come from being involved in criminal activity when he was young. So if he made that transition, he could have been somebody that was, present to push me to learn from his mistakes, and also teach me what manhood really was about. Because we think aggression, hyperaggression in this case, is what manhood is all about. And I think, part of that in some ways makes you feel like a man, but that's not what manhood is about. And I think he could have really showed me another path.
Now, at that time when you were growing up, when you started getting into the streets, that he could have showed you, was he still in the streets though? So he couldn't show you what he didn't know?
Yeah, he still was in the streets.
So it wouldn't even have been helpful to have him in your life? Or you think he probably still would have try to keep you awake, but because he was doing it?
So I think there's a I think it's very possible to be in the streets and still lead your son out the streets. It's a contradiction, but
Well-
I do think it's possible.
Well, like a leader, the real laws of the leadership would be do as I lead
Do.
by example. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
do as I
As I
say.
say.
Yeah. So he could say that all he wants, but at the end of the day, if it's acceptable to him and he's showing it to you, then you're going to think like, all right, it's not the right thing, but it's acceptable if he's doing it.
Yeah, and it wasn't just him though. So
I was gonna ask you that too. Do you think him not being involved, or the influence of the crowd you were around, or even the neighborhood or the city you're in, had more of a factor into it? Because I know people that came from very good homes, mom and dad, and still gravitated towards the street, ended up in prison, ended up in crime.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to isolate anything, like one thing, when it comes to like influencing how a person perceive life as well as how they see themselves. So I just think it was a combination of everything. Me being exposed to what I grew up around on the block in the neighborhood, absent father, and just things being normalized within the neighborhood. So I think all those different things kind of influenced me at some point to make a left turn down the wrong path.
Yeah. I got a question with you. Sorry, Lil. With you involved in, what you're involved in now, we'll get into it. What do you think the solution is to save the next John, the next younger John?
So I think that's another case where it's not just like one thing. I think what we're doing right now within the community can save the next whoever. Having, real men that's respected from the neighborhoods, whether he was involved in a criminal lifestyle or not, but just having that respect in the neighborhood, being viewed as somebody who's, strong to younger people, and really leading by example, like we just talked about, showing young men that you can be as cool as you want, doing good in the neighborhood, and you'll get the same respect and admiration and support as you would get if you was, being destructive in your neighborhood. So I think what we're doing right now, just us being individuals that already got respect, that been through that lifestyle, was able to make the transition, and just as bold about the transition with, being on this positive path, is something that inspires a lot of younger people to feel like, oh, I can do it too, and still be viewed as strong or whatever they look to get out of the streets, whether it's like having a name. We can teach you how to get a name. You don't got to destroy your neighborhood to get a name. We can teach you how to get money. You don't got to go to the streets to get no money. We can teach you how to value yourself and be confident in who you are as an individual without being in the streets. You don't have to sacrifice your own life and sacrifice impact in many lives in the neighborhood by, being on this path. So I think, what we're doing is a solution of many.
Yeah, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. I want to hit on some more of your story. So, as you got older, high school and all that stuff, did it grow on you like more as far as being in the streets? Like, did you get deeper into the streets? Like,
Yeah, I would say so.
any arrest, stuff like that?
Yeah, so again, like, I want to say I got in the streets around 12, 13 years old. Give or take. Probably really was a little younger, but 12, 13 years old. But my intention never was to get involved in the streets. Like, my mom wanted me to go to school. I wanted to go to school. I had aspirations of being in the health space, maybe a doctor, something like that. So my goal never was to be in the streets. But we also taught culturally that when we have conflict, or if your friends have conflict with other individuals, and you're at a place where, it escalates into a physical fight or escalates into gun violence, then as a friend, as a true friend, you have to risk your life to defend these individuals. So when I made that turn, 13 years old or whatever, 13, 14 is when we actually started getting into beef. And that shift happened. I felt like the more I behaved in a violent way, the more my friends behaved in a violent way, the more people got hurt, whether it was on our side or the other side. Those sacrifices and those risks that we took became something that, for me, shaped my identity as a teenager. So that was shaping my identity as a teenager. So, of course, if you perpetuate or behave in a certain way over time, how you view yourself is how you behave. So I viewed myself at that point as being like somebody who's committed to this lifestyle. And then I got shot 15, seeing friends.
You got shot at 15 years old?
Yeah, I got shot at 15.
Damn.
Watched my homie, close friend of mine's, die months before. So that, you know, when you say things like that, them traumatic experiences, and you don't really got nobody that you feel comfortable with expressing yourself to.
Opening up to.
Because on one end, people would say to vent or express yourself and express the pain, but on the other end, we deal with people viewing you being vulnerable as being weak. And so all you got is homies, and we all frustrated and we angry. And the only way we know how to resolve a problem or address an issue like that is to take justice in our own hands where we come from, because we know justice ain't going to be served in most cases. So the people that cause harm to us, it's probably going to be walking around still on the hunt for people. So yeah, I just feel myself being, I don't know, it's kind of like quicksand. You don't really realize that this stuff is really you sinking into the ground, and this stuff taking over your life until it's like too late. So yeah, as I got older, man, but I still went to school and all that because I had to. My mom wasn't playing like that. But yeah, I felt myself being more committed to the lifestyle as I lost and grieved and went through those traumatic experiences.
That was a lot, man.
Talk about getting shot at 15. Like,
yeah.
What was going through your mind then? Like, it's just, this is the part. And how did your family react? You're a child that had been shot. You think like that would be the wake up call, right?
For some,
yeah.
You know, we was going to war. We understood from a very limited perspective what came with this lifestyle. Yeah, we know come with death and prison and stuff like that. But we had a very limited view because we still teenagers. But I wasn't expecting to get shot, obviously. Nobody thinks anything is going to happen to them. No matter how many people get killed, shot, you just feel like it's not really going to happen to me until it happens to you. And if you're fortunate and blessed, you get a second chance at life. But if not, you just lose your life. But for me, when I got shot, I was, strangely,
Where'd you get shot at?
I was mad.
Where'd you get shot at?
Got shot in my arm. It went through my arm and almost hit my heart because it went through my arm with the side of my chest. But I recall just being on the ground and stuff like that and just being very, very angry, not really sad. But then the other end, I felt like maybe this is it. Maybe, what I just experienced as far as losing somebody earlier that year is about to happen to me right now. Thankfully, it didn't.
The ambulance came, or did someone take you to the hospital?
Well, the ambulance at that time was frustrated by the person that was calling them. So they they didn't come. The police officer wound up coming, throwing me in the back of the cop car and taking me to the hospital. Got to the hospital. Of course, my mom. The highlight of that whole situation is just my mom coming in there, seeing her son. You got to think about it. My mom didn't really know I was involved in that lifestyle of crime, gun violence, and stuff like that.
Especially at 15.
Yeah, 15. I always had I carried myself as a teenager when I was around parents. So you kind of live two lives. Always was respectful, quiet all my life. But yeah, I don't know I never asked her how the phone call experience was when she first heard that I got shot, but I do remember her coming in there and just crying and stuff like that. And I don't know, I guess this is a moment where you either choose to get your life together, seeing your mom cry like that, or you just get angry and take vengeance in your own hand and retaliate. So I kind of took the route of getting aggressive and being more wild, and never really getting to a place where I actually wanted to change my life. I just was more angry and just wanted to do something to whoever did something to me.
So you came out of the hospital. Like, how long were you in the hospital for, and then how was the recovery with that?
Just a few days. It wasn't like it was just arm, chest shot. It wasn't nothing that's going. It wasn't nothing that was going to put me down.
It was
like
just
that.
a chest
arm and chest shot.
Yeah, I mean, you got people that
Lose
hit
limbs,
certain bones and
Yeah.
they're not even able to walk. Like I only got hit once. It just went through my arm. I was skinnier than what I am now, but it wasn't like my legs wasn't broken. I wasn't shot in the leg and nothing like that. So as long as I was able to move, I was cool. So the recovery process wasn't really that bad outside of me having like permanent nerve damage in my arm. So like
Still to this day?
yeah, I got permanent nerve damage. I got surgery months later to try to get it repaired, but it never and I never recovered from it. So
Just thinking about that, 15 years old, got shot. Did you deal with depression at all going through that at that time frame in your life? Like, were you depressed during the recovery, or were you just still outside, open wounds and stuff?
I went through moments of depression while being involved in the lifestyle. I didn't recognize it as depression though, but I did have days where like sad, but as soon as I feel sadness or any level of depression, I found ways to escape it by just, being violent. Being violent.
So that was your outlet, violence.
Yeah, that's how I coped at that time.
All right. Can we hit on what led up to your arrest? Like, what you got arrested for, and did you serve a lot of time, or was it just like an in and out thing? How did that go?
Yeah, so I got arrested when I was my 12th grade year, firearm. Wound up getting convicted. I got convicted for drugs, not the firearm. But because I ran with they called it a gang at that time, the DA argued that it still wasn't safe for me to be like released. So I wound up getting sent up placement for 10 months of my 12th grade year. And of course I came home, same mentality. Got arrested maybe 3-4 months later for attempted murder. Was arrested on the scene, and wound up getting sent upstate eventually after taking a deal. Took a 3 to 10. Some people wanted me to fight it, but I mean they had the firearm, and literally got arrested on the scene. So wound up taking the deal and getting sent upstate.
How old were you at this time?
I was 18, almost turning 19 like in a few months, but I was 18 when I got locked up.
Was that the moment that the bells start going off for you?
No, the bell still didn't ring.
No?
It didn't ring yet. Went up, got locked up, went to CF. I just remember like my mentality with, going from the district on our way to CF. Was like, okay, with the placement, now you're going to jail. Like, this is all the stories that you've heard about jail. You made it to jail. So it's like I shifted my mindset, like, okay, when I come into jail, the same way I carry myself when I was home, you gotta carry yourself the same way when you get to the prisons. So when I got there, I was chilling. I was chilling for like the first few months. I ain't really had no issues. It wasn't until I got sent to PIC because my custody level went up once they did the ballistics on a firearm or whatever. Charges went up, and I wanted to get sent to PIC, and PIC was just like a different kind of
They used to
jail.
call pick Pokemon back in the day.
Yeah, people were scared to even, people on the bus was like, some people was terrified even going on the bus and going to PIC. So that's when things started to shift as far as like now I'm over PIC. I'm trying to make an attempt to chill, but the environment here is way too aggressive, and I matched the energy when I was there. Same mentality, getting into stuff, knives, and
Did you go to the
got
hole?
violent.
You ended up going to the hole?
Yeah, I spent time in the hole, a couple months in the hole. Yeah, contraband case. Found a whole lot of
How'd you deal with, so I did some time in the hole, but how did you deal with being like, would you have a cellie or were you solitary?
while I was in punitive. I think it was
Punitive.
like
Nutty.
70 some days. We was in there for a long time.
So you're there sitting with yourself and your thoughts. That's it.
Yeah, I had a cellie though while I was back there until, of course, they sent me to my own cell. But I spent a couple months by myself too.
How'd you deal with that? Reading or thinking? Because when I did time in the hole, I learned, I was like, I got to be my own best friend because that's all I got in here. Because you're literally talking to yourself.
I don't know. I think back and I really don't know how I even was able to manage and get through those experiences. Like for me, it wasn't no different than being on population. I just was locked in the cell doing time. So you kind of got to take on this animal mindset. I'm in the cage. I'm locked in. Hopefully I get out the hole at some point, but I'm in jail. And the stuff that I was doing, I definitely was guilty at that time. So you just get through the time, whether you're reading, or just chilling, reflecting. So I got through it.
So you mentioned that you took a deal. You think one of the reasons or part of the reasons that you took your deal was not only because you couldn't beat it, but you think it was because you didn't want to be in the county no more? Because I know a lot of people be burnt out with the county, and it's like, bro, I'm just ready to go upstate and get this time over with so I can get out of here. You think that was part of the reason that you took the deal?
The main reason why I took the deal, outside of obviously me being arrested on the scene, them having a firearm, is like the time they was trying to give me. They was trying to give me like a 13 and a half to 27 if I lost my case. So I'm like, between that time and the 3 to 10, I already got some time in already.
As a win.
Yeah, I'd rather take the deal than take it to trial and risk losing it. And now I'm spending a minimum of 13 years in prison over something that I know I did.
It's all about perspective because it's still a win. Like people look at it like if I beat the case, that's a win. If I take a deal or get found guilty, that's a loss. Or you could look at it as if I beat the case, I win. If I take a deal, I still win because I'm not doing the 13 and a half years. Yeah. Doing 3 years in comparison to 13, it's like, that's a win.
You start thinking about who's going to be alive when you come home. Yeah. All of that stuff played
I remember the one kid, he had a stabbing and he had they offered him a 3 to 10. He's like, no, I ain't taking it. Now I'm going to my court date and he just got sentenced. Like he was in like a year before me and he told me the deal that they offered him. He's like, I ain't taking the 3 to 10. I'm going to beat it. So now I'm going to go to trial and he's just coming. I'm like, what happened? He's like, man, I lost. I'm like, what they give you? He's like, man, they gave me a 10 to 20. And he had 2 years in already in the county. So now I got to go up there and do 8 more years.
Yeah, it's dude.
I ain't want to take that gamble.
And he did it.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, I had a few people telling me to take the deal, but my own wisdom at that time, whatever wisdom I had, was like, nah, I'm gonna do this time. I'll be home in a few years.
How'd your family handle it? They told you to take the deal? Were they supportive? Were they mad at you?
I never really asked like how they was feeling at that time. The only person, like, it was a man in my family that was trying to get me to take the he wanted me to actually go to trial. My family, most of them wanted me to take the deal, and I wanted to take the deal because I mean ultimately I gotta do the time, so I wound up taking the deal.
So when did the change started to come? Like
That
what
bell go off. When that bell start going ringing a little bit, man. Right.
Yeah, when I got up, I want to say a few months after being upstate.
Where'd you go?
So I went to, obviously, you got to go to Greatest Ford, then Camp Hill, then eventually I got sent to Dallas. But my change started at, some of it started at Greatest Ford, but really Camp Hill. I had met a homie I met a guy who was close friends with a homie from my block at that time. He used to go to church or whatever. I wound up going to church a few times. And eventually wound up being saved, went on this Christian journey. And really, like, faith, whoever got any kind of religious practice, who's ever, like, committed to a religious practice understands, like, your faith can really shift the way you view your life and view yourself. And for me, it was like my faith was the thing that really helped me to kind of reevaluate who I was and what I was doing, like the impact that my decisions was making on my family, myself, and my community. And really at Camp Hill, that's when things started to shift for me. And I just remember just not understanding, like I was feeling like for the first time, like this change of heart. Like it felt wrong at the time a little bit. Like, why am I thinking about life and reconsidering how I move? But I mean, it was happening, and eventually I kind of accepted it for what it was and had enough wisdom to just like, okay, I gotta make some changes. I got some time to do while I'm here, but while I'm here, you gotta start working on you, because if you can't work on yourself in here and have the discipline to not react in certain situations, then, can't control yourself here, you can't control yourself out there. So I'm like, all right, let me be selective with who I hang around, because depending on who I hang around, I might get into more trouble, might be here a little longer when I'm supposed to, might catch another case while I'm here. So I started being selective with who I hung around, start getting into books and finding ways to keep myself busy in there. Then I had some mentors up there, because once I got to SCI Dallas, those lifers up there played a big role in like pushing me to develop into a leader in there. So they was telling me what books to read, really having conversations with me, just, helping me to really expand my whole perspective on everything, especially like leadership. So, between that, staying grounded in my faith in there, keeping myself busy, and really taking the time out to really prepare to go home and stay home, all that stuff played a part in me coming out here and doing what I've done since I've been home.
How long did that process take?
So from like, I want to say 2013 up until like 2015 is where like I went through my journey of transformation.
Okay. So like 2 years, give or take.
Yeah, I was like, I was intense.
Yeah.
Like, those 2 years was intense.
How old were you when you came home? And did you make parole the first time you seen him?
I got denied.
Really?
I got denied the first time. Yeah, and that was a test for me too. It's like, I'm doing the right thing, staying on the right path. I forget why they denied me. But I mean, I was in it for violence, but I wasn't getting into no trouble at that point upstate. I was on the right path.
Probably wanted to test you to see how you would react.
Yeah, so when I got the hit.
3-month hit or a 6-month?
It was a 6-month hit. Yeah, 6 months. I believe it was a 6-month hit. So yeah, that was a test for me. Cause I'm like I said, I was doing the right thing. So you feel like I'm doing the right thing. So when I see the parole board, they're gonna let me home. But I came back to myself, just like, okay, gotta wait a little longer. Stay focused, stay locked in on what you've been doing. Maybe the next time you go up there, they'll let you go. That's what happened.
And how old were you
It's a
at this
blessing.
time?
I'm 23.
23 years old, a young man now. And did you have a plan?
Yeah, I had some plans.
What were a couple of things if you could remember? Like, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do like. Did you even have a driver's license at the time?
Yeah, I got my driver's license when I was like 16,
Okay.
17. So I had that.
Bank account, all that stuff. You had to like basically re-enter society.
Yeah, I didn't have a bank account at the time when I came home. But I did have plans on at some point doing like community work.
Okay.
But I had some other stuff that I used to plan out with one of my homies in there. He was like, he had a life sentence. But we would still take time out to really like come up with different ideas, different business ideas while we was in there. But even outside of like the for-profit business ideas, I knew I wanted to at some point get involved in influencing other people's lives to do the right thing. I just didn't understand that when I got home, how I would get into it so early. Like, cause I got involved in community work around gun violence a few months after coming home.
Man,
But
you
that
got
wasn't the
busy.
plan. Yeah, that wasn't the plan.
How'd you get into that then? If it wasn't on your like to-do list, did you like bump into somebody or someone brought you to somebody else?
Yeah, well, I had some. So it was a group of kids. I say kids because I watched them grow up, but I was a kid too watching them grow up. But I had them about some years. They was going to war when I came home in my neighborhood. So the groups, I knew both sides of the groups. I didn't know everybody, but I knew both sides. And a lot of them, like I said, I watched them grow up. They knew who I was. And when I realized that they was going to war with each other, normally, like, it's too close for us to go to war with each other. But this war was so close. I'm like, me being still young, me being relevant, me being respected in my neighborhood, I got to do something to tackle this issue. Because this is my neighborhood. Like, and I played a part, me and my homies, we all played parts in, I'm sure, in influencing them to normalize that kind of behavior. So I felt like it was my role as a person that might have influenced them in some way growing up to actually influence them to do some good or reconsider like the lifestyle that they was living. So that's how I kind of like got into it early.
How'd you like approach the situation though? Like you knew the leaders on each block, or did you like have a sit down with them? How did that go?
So I had to find out who was all involved first. Kind of found out it was a lot more people than I expected that was involved in it. Came with conversations, introducing myself. I wasn't coming off aggressive or coming off like this is my neighborhood or anything like that. I just, was building relationships with them and just trying to understand like their mindsets and like what led them to get involved in this lifestyle or get involved in gun violence. And of course, with time, me just being consistent in their lives, me sitting down with them and talking to them, sharing my story. Eventually, it was a level of respect built outside of whoever they might have perceived me to be when I was running in the streets when I was younger. And again, like with that war, it wasn't like, we wasn't able to like completely stop it. But with time, the conversations that I was having with them on both sides and me mediating conflicts, like they would share times where like because there was a moment where we actually squashed it, but that took years. But there's one particular time where we squashed it. They had enough respect for me to call me, let me know like one of the guys was acting crazy on social media, saying stuff on social media, and I was able to kind of like drive down there and prevent something from happening to the individual because the individual was vulnerable at that time. But they called me and I was able to go down there and prevent that from happening. But a lot of it just relationship building and being reliable. Whatever their needs are, little financial needs.
Did the city get involved?
Oh, the city didn't get involved. This was early on. The city wasn't. I don't even think many people from the city knew who I was.
So aside from that war, what was the next step from there? Like
With the community work?
yeah, you knew your calling. It's like, what was the next step from there with the community work?
So I remember I had a family member that was involved in like community gun violence, and I went to some meetings, like with the city, just trying to understand the world that I'm walking into. And once I realized that this is really my passion and my purpose, that's when I'm like, hold up, man, let me actually build a concept out and push this. So I was just thinking about my whole life experience with like Endangered Kind, my nonprofit organization. But I was just thinking about my experience from being in prison to prior to being in prison to being in the streets and before I got in the streets, and just feeling like as a black man growing up in urban communities, I felt like our lives, like we was endangered species. So it went from that concept to me like thinking about it some more and like, hold up, humankind, endangered kind, like we are the human groups within this planet that's most targeted when it comes to gun violence or the criminal justice system. So I wound up building a brand, and then I started learning about like nonprofit organizations. Wound up getting my paperwork done. I had a mentor that was that had a nonprofit organization at the time. She helped me with the paperwork, and from there, I just was doing anything that I could to just remain visible out there, going to different rallies and just being all throughout the neighborhoods, just being visible and just pushing my message to young people that was involved in the streets and just put myself out there.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember when I first came home and you told me the work you was doing, and I'm like, bro, I'm with it. Let me know. And then eventually, you scheduled a lunch for us and you set it up, and a lot of people don't know, like, you the glue between what's going on right now with the Endangered Kind thing. They call us the Fantastic Four out here, man.
Right.
Me, you, Dot, and Hill, you feel me? And it's like, I appreciate the work you done, bro, and situating everything and just bringing us together, bro, because there's a lot of youngins out there, especially where we from, that we have influence over.
Yeah.
And it was a point in time where we had a negative influence over them. They seen the nut stuff we was doing in the street. So just to see us transform and our transformation and the work we doing now is really setting off a lot of their alarms. Like, oh, this not the way. This really the way to do it. Like, this how you take care of stuff.
And it was tough too. I mean, because you got to think about just the whole that lifestyle has on people. It's like once you start being involved in gun violence or crime and you got like a group of people that really becomes like your second family, it's kind of hard to reach a place of independency where you're ready to like separate yourself from other people and live a totally, completely lifestyle than they are living. So when I went on this positive path, not even a positive path, I want to say a growing path, I had to really be willing to sacrifice how people perceived me to be at that time. I had to accept that I wouldn't be accepted by my homies or friends or by anybody who grew any level of loyalty or perceived me to be a certain kind of way and supported me living that kind of lifestyle. I had to be willing to sacrifice all that and still be confident in who I am. So it was tough. Being like, at that time, there really wasn't nobody around that was young as me that came from the same background that was on this positive path. So when I made that transition coming home, I understood, okay, I might not be accepted. I'm always going to be respected because I'm always going to demand respect no matter what, but I won't be accepted. And I still got to maintain my confidence and independency throughout my process, even though it's not cool and acceptable to do good in the community right now. And I heard, there was talks or whispers about give him a few months, he gonna go right back to the same path of being involved in gun violence. But I stayed consistent, and it took a whole lot to stay consistent. I mean, literally blood, sweat, and tears, breaking down throughout the process. You drop your tears in the process. You don't really see none of the fruits of your labor. And you just questioning, should I go back? And I had access to everything that you would need to thrive in that lifestyle, but I felt like the purpose and the path that I was on was going to lead to something much greater in the long term. So I stayed committed. And I just was thankful that with me being consistent over the years, that people that came from the same background, people that might have either criticized me in the beginning because they felt like I would get back into the lifestyle of the streets, or maybe people that didn't really believe in the vision or see it. I'm just glad at some point they start coming around with really understanding, like, okay, he really is on this path. He really committed, and I can actually do something similar. Like, I can get my life together now and do good, and become a regular civilian and live your life. So that was
You made that shit
worth
cool.
Yeah, I made it cool. Made it cool.
How your mom feel now? That's probably the biggest accomplishment right there. Just you know,
she don't gotta worry no more, or she's proud, super proud of you, because you didn't just change your life, you're trying to help change other people's lives.
and your grandma too. Real rap.
Yeah.
She the boss.
For sure, definitely the boss. I mean, they proud. Like my mom, and I ain't mentioned this earlier, but my mom had a sense of a peace of mind when I was away, because she knew that I wasn't out here living a lifestyle and I wasn't gonna get killed. Less likely to get killed in prison, even though that happens. So she was kind of happy when I was away. So me coming home, me staying on the right path, because early on in my life, people used to come to her telling her things that I was doing, like all the negative stuff, the drama, the violence, and stuff like that. So when I stayed on the right path, and people start speaking highly about the stuff that I was doing to my mom, it felt good that the stuff that they reporting back to my mom is positive stuff. Like, your son is doing a lot of great work in the community, stuff that she could be proud of as a parent, because the lifestyle I was living, mothers find ways to still be proud of their kids no matter what lifestyle they live in. But I knew I was doing a whole lot of good in my neighborhood. So all the reports back to my mom and my grandma felt good. My grandma, she kind of innocent. So she really don't understand the highlights of my life the last couple of years. She just know that I'm on the right path. I'm still home. I mean, I don't even think she really know how involved I was in the streets when I was young.
Yeah.
So she just happy. She happy that I'm on the right path. My family happy, and they all proud.
That's what's up, man.
So for the nonprofit, what are some things that you're doing for the community? Like, what is Endangered Kind about, and what are some of the activities that you're doing that bring good to the community?
So our main focus right now, we part of a project called Area 32, which covers the whole 19132 zip code. That's one of the most violent zip codes in the city. I think top 5, maybe top 3. Part of what we do is we hire what they call credible messengers. These are people that have lived experience with being involved in the criminal justice system, or being involved in crime or gun violence, or being impacted in crime in some way. We train them up, deploy them back into the community. And we have other partners that we work with on this collaborative project where they offer different services, everybody playing a different role. So we got the basketball program, Victory in North, and we got EMAIR that provides healing services for people that's been victims of trauma or violent crimes. We got another service that we provide that provides cleaning and greening to the neighborhoods. Another program that called Beat the Block for young men ages 18 to 25 to help them become better men and better businessmen. They get paid up to $5 a week. So our role within this is really being the outreach and engagement. So we go out into the communities, we door knocking, we talking to residents about these services, and we also asking residents what they feel like some of the issues are within their communities, because oftentimes when we talk about gun violence or just certain issues that impact vulnerable communities, we don't hear directly from the people. So we hear their voices and their concerns. We also try to get input on some of the solutions they feel like would be to solving these issues. And outside of the engagement part and the outreach, we really try to identify guys that are involved in gun violence, and try to figure out how we can help them, and also try to get them involved in doing good in the neighborhood. Because sometimes you gotta first of all, sometimes you got to see guys that you respect doing it, and secondly, you actually have to do it yourself and see the reactions that your friends, your family, and the community, the reactions you get from that, to feel good about it. So when you're doing good in the neighborhood and everybody supporting you for doing good, you kind of feel good about it. So we try to get them involved as well and show them the way.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Frank. You had something?
No, go ahead.
Sound like you was about to go.
Go ahead.
So where do you see this going, man? This Endangered Kind. Where do you see yourself at, like in the next couple years, the near future?
I see myself having different programs in different cities, especially some of the major cities where like gun violence is still like one of the top issues in urban communities.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to train some people up in different cities and, get them to do the same thing we're doing in Philly. And outside of that, doing activism and advocacy across the country, because these issues within the city is not unique. It's happening everywhere throughout the country. So for me to be able to go to different cities and connect with different leaders, figure out how we can contribute to addressing certain issues is something that I want to do in the near future. So,
okay, what's some other things that you got going on? I know you're a part of the oversight committee as well, right?
Yeah. So a few things. I mean that I probably should have mentioned earlier was like I've been a part of the governor's transition team, the current governor. I've been a part of his transition team before he got into office. That was a big deal for me. And also, prior to that, I became like one of the commissioners of what they call the Civilian Police Oversight Commission. That's a new independent agency that was created, I want to say back in 2021 after George Floyd and other individuals that was murdered by police officers across the country. And they put it on the ballot. The people supported it. They said that they wanted a Civilian Police Oversight Commission. And I applied for the position. I found out a little later, and I wound up applying and wound up being selected, one of about 9 commissioners in the city. So I'm a Civilian Police Oversight Commissioner for the 39th Police District, which is the same neighborhood that I grew up in. So I oversee police. We push for transparency in their processes, because oftentimes the community feel like when a police officer is involved or allegedly involved in police misconduct, they feel like they are not transparent about what really happened. So as a commissioner, as a board, we push for them to be transparent about what happened and like the evidence. And also we push the whole, police officers that are involved in misconduct accountable for their actions. And this, there's a lot of great police officers, but just like any other profession, there's people that, need to be held accountable. So me being an individual that's been impacted by police misconduct, but also being a commissioner helped me understand things from a police officer's perspective now. Because, I grew up with my own stigmas as well, but I kind of understand their perspectives as well, too. So, but yeah, we push to hold them accountable. Right now, there's a bargaining agreement going on right now where, like, a contract with the union.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get the CPOC, that's acronym for Civilian Police Oversight Commission, included in the contract so we can start doing independent investigations. Because right now we don't got the power to do so. But in the legislation, when they put the legislation together, that was the intention behind the CPOC. So now, if we get the support from city council and the unions and stuff like that, we're able to actually do our own independent investigations and collect all the evidence to find out what really happened and provide the transparency and accountability to police officers in Philadelphia. So
That's major.
Yeah, that's major. So y'all basically be responsible for any footage that might have been hidden from the police department and stuff like that when something first initially happens.
yeah, we
Or you can go knock on doors and get doorbell cameras.
Yeah, that's
footage
tough,
and-
bro.
we get to access all the evidence. The whole, hold them accountable. I mean, that's been a thing historically. It's not something that thought I would apply for, but it's a big issue. We've seen what happened all across the country during like that 2020, 2021 period where you seen civil unrest all throughout the country. You had people, police officers resigning, retiring, just leaving the law enforcement, and people was crying and advocating for change. So when I seen the opportunity, and some people didn't understand like what the Civilian Police Oversight Commission is, they thinking I'm a police officer.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not a police officer. I can't be a police officer even if I wanted to. I oversee police. Their policies, their practices, their trainings, and we hold them accountable. If they,
I don't work for the police work for me.
Yeah, like we hold them accountable.
We're making sure they know what they supposed to be doing, man.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man, I gotta give you accolades, man. I'm super happy for you, man. We've been locked in since the second grade, man.
Second grade for sure.
I gotta hit on this. I can't go too much longer without hitting on this, man. That introduction to Obama, man. I gotta hit on that. How'd you feel about it? Like, how did it go? Like, that was a big deal right there, man. Real rap. I told you a million times, like, how happy I was for you. Like, how you feel about that introduction?
That felt surreal. It was only like two moments, two highlights out of many that really felt like surreal. And the one was me going back to the prisons at SCI Dallas and speaking to the men up there for the first time. And that was the Obama, introducing Obama.
Real quick, if y'all missed that, that's where John was incarcerated at, SCI Dallas. He returned there to talk to the lifers and the men that's still incarcerated there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It kind of felt, like I said, it didn't feel real. And I'm not the kind of person that's like, I'm very cool personality. It's not like a pride thing, but I'm normally just like even keel with everything. But I just remember being back there, backstage or whatever. And, before I actually went up, I actually got a chance to talk to Obama for like a few seconds. They moved back there. It's not like you could spend a bunch of time with people like him. But I spent a few seconds with him, and he said he checked out some of my work, and he liked what I was doing or whatever. That felt really good, hearing that from him. I'm taking the time out to even look at my stuff or what I had going on. And also, it felt good that they know my background, because obviously if you choose to put somebody to introduce you on the stage like that, then they did a thorough research on who I was and everything that came with me introducing him. So for them and for him to even support me getting up there, it was like, okay, I really come from this background. I really come from a lifestyle that for some, they're frown upon it and won't look at a person as being worthy of a second chance. So a few seconds, I should say, before they introduced me to go up on the stage, just a lot of emotions. I mean, it's a big day. And plus I got short notice. They told me a day before I actually went up there and introduced him. So I ain't had that much time. So when it was time to go up, come out there, wave at the people. I didn't realize how big the crowd was until I got out there. There's a lot of people out there. And a lot of cameras. I didn't have that many goosebumps once I hit the stage and the pathway.
I got a job to do.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, I can tune out a little bit. So I was tuning out as I was walking through the pathway before I got to the mic. And, once I get started and once I go, the butterflies and the nervousness normally, it disappears to some level. I still had some levels of anxiety up there, obviously, because it's live. This ain't one of those
recorded.
This
take
this
two.
Is
They know
live.
take two.
Yeah, so when I got up there, crowd was going, shared my speech or whatever. And then when he came out, it was like,
Yeah, it's
felt really good, man.
It's crazy because I watched it, and you start as you're introducing him and you're saying his accolades, right? You see the crowd getting louder and they're already starting to clap.
Yeah.
Like a volcano.
Yeah, and then he's like walking out as you're introducing him, and I seen like I'm like looking at like the audience, everyone's going crazy. So, and you were a part of that. It's crazy to like.
That was
That
major,
was a special.
bro.
It was a special moment. Not just for me, because anything that I do, I always think about the collective, the people that support me, and just people that probably don't support me, just people that come from the same environments and neighborhoods. I just felt like that was a moment for a lot of people who might feel like, you know, whatever you might have went through in life, whatever setbacks you might have went through, like whether you went through the criminal justice system or whatever you might have experienced in life.
Possibilities. You
yeah.
showed possibilities in that moment that like I was shot before, was in street life, was incarcerated, and then now I'm here. One of the biggest campaigns that this city ever seen because of this being a swing state, introducing the former president of the United States.
That was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Probably, bro.
Yeah. So I felt really good.
How
Like,
did that? So
representing
how
a
did
lot
that
of
come
people.
about though? You said it was a short notice. Like, how did John get hand selected to go do this?
So so there was one particular guy that I met some years ago at the city controller's office. Anybody that don't know the city controller, they're part of an agency that oversees like the finances in the city. So it was one individual that was working on the Harris campaign, and he'd been watching me for some years now. I don't know how closely he's been watching me, but he's been watching me, and I seen him recently at the Beat the Block program as well. So when they was looking for somebody who was like on the younger side, with the credibility within the community, and I don't know how many names they had in the hat. I'm certain it was quite a few. Out of everybody, they felt like I was the one to introduce him. So he reached out to me that Sunday and asked me, and I was just like, that kind of phone call introducing Obama was like, this is a real phone call? Like, this is serious? I didn't even think it really was going to happen the next day.
You had to make sure it wasn't April.
Yeah, I'm like, there's no way. So I gave it some time. I was thinking about it, though, but I still was kind of like, let me see what they talking about tomorrow, because anything could happen where, like, they might say, well, we can't do it. But Monday came around, and they still communicate with me. I said, okay, it's really happening. So I'm like, I'm really about to go on the big stage. So that's how it happened.
And no money can give you that feeling. No type of like, you were hand selected from the work you did, and I'm sure your family, as a friend and knowing you, I'm proud of you, and I'm sure your family was super happy for you.
Thanks,
So.
bro.
They was definitely super happy. I mean,
And it's still the beginning of your journey too. Like you're young
Yeah.
still.
yeah, definitely still early, but yeah, it was a moment it's gonna stick with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Bro, I want to thank you for coming on, taking this time out, man, to come on and just let people know your story. And from the time, what you got, like 9 years in now with the nonprofit world?
Yeah, close.
Violence?
Close to about 9 years.
9 years, and you started at a young age 23 years old, bro. Like,
And I want to thank you for everything you do for the community.
facts, bro.
I'm sure you hear it all the time, but this is from me to you. She's success to you. Like we appreciate your representation of this, like
Yeah.
positive change, coming from the streets, doing things that are successful now, and this is what the podcast is about. Exactly your story. So you're like a prototype for our viewers to watch, and we appreciate it.
Facts. And like I said, if y'all don't know, like, I always wanted to give back, but this guy right here is the reason why. Real rap. He had that sit down with me, say, yo, bro, come on. We about to do this. Your man, Endangered Kind, Area 32 thing. All right, come on. And your man, I appreciate that, bro. Everything you doing for our community, bro, is big. From what we just spoke about, going back to where you were incarcerated at, or even getting publicly acknowledged from the people that you did have problems with.
Yeah.
You feel me? That's major. You mean? So appreciate you, man. Let people know where they can find you at, John.
So you can find me on www.endangeredkind.org. That's ENDANGEREDKIND.org, or social media, Instagram, endanger_kind.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, John.
Or y'all
Appreciate
can
y'all.
catch us in 19132, man,
Getting
passing
busy.
out flower pots, getting busy.
Streets
You
of
know what I mean?
success.
Streets of success.
Sucks.